And it's a special edition of Boots and All to discuss the most controversial decision in Rugby League's history. In case you've missed the news, from next season Rugby League reverts to a two-division format of 16 clubs. It means 3 clubs will have to drop out of the competition. Now tonight we hear from both sides of the Great Divide. From Rugby League headquarters, Maurice Lindsay, the game's chief executive, joins us, and John Wilkinson is alongside him, the chairman of Salford. And representing the other side of the argument, Chorley and Highfield. Lindsay Hoyle is chairman of Chorley. Geoff Fletcher holds a similar position at Highfield. 2 clubs struggling for their lives at the bottom of the 3rd division. And as ever, Mike Stephenson is here too. Steve-O's never short of an opinion about Rugby League, and tonight I'm sure will be no exception. But before we discuss the most important issue to face the game for years, let's drop in on Thrumhall, Halifax, for the visit of title contenders St Helens. The sparks were flying on Friday, and the town wasn't big enough for the both of them. Yeah, so that was Friday night at Halifax as the Saints maintained the pressure on Wigan at the top of the table. So to the rest of the action now, some important matches to catch up on since we were with you last 2 weeks ago.
Bradford Northern went ahead after 22 minutes when Carl Fairbank forced his way over. 3 minutes later, Neil Summers' grubber kick caused confusion in the Wigan defence and Roy Powell got the final touch. Sean Edwards set up Wigan's reply, handing off to Barry John Mather, who stretched his way over. Back came Northern though with a superb try. Tony Anderson cutting infield, selling the dummy, and then timing his pass to flying Tony Marchant, 17-4 at half-time. A fine break by Bradford's Roger Simpson set up their next try. Paul Medley was the man in support to score. Then Wigan came roaring back. Jason Robinson, aided by some loose Northern tackling, cutting the deficit. And Neil Cowie capitalised on more poor defence for his try, but it was too late for Wigan.
After beating Leeds in the semi-final, Widnes were proving it was no fluke at Norton Park on Wednesday. Jonathan Davis with the kick that fooled Jim Fallon and David Myers again with the try. And when Steve McCurry plundered one from acting halfback, Widnes were well on their way. The game got quite heated at times, and the result of this bout of fisticuffs was a 10-minute spell in the sin bin for Widnes Great Britain fullback Stuart Spruce. Fallon showed tremendous strength in the tackle as he held off Myers, Davis and Darren Wright, and he had the presence of mind to turn the ball infield to Ellery Hanley, playing at standoff, who improved the angle before touching down. But Widnes rounded off the night in style, a great run from John Devereux, turning the Leeds defence inside out. Widnes 19, Leeds 8.
Hull KR had to turn out in Castleford's own away strip at Weldon Road after forgetting their own, and the Robins were still suffering an identity crisis as Tony Morrison went over in the 9th minute. Then Wayne Parker's kick ahead was gathered on his own try line by St John Ellis, and the winger then raced the length of the pitch for a dramatic score. The Robins came back when Rob Hutchinson broke strongly. Ellis got a hand to the ball, but David Lydiard popped it up for Carl Hall to score on his debut. Two minutes into the second half, a classic Graham Steadman try. Wrong-footing the Hull KR defence, out-sprinting all the cover for a 70-yard score. Lydiard brought Rovers back within range with a neat solo try to make it 18-12. Castleford soon regained the initiative though, first with Nickow's try. Then when Mike Ford kicked through and Tony Smith got the touchdown. And when Anderson and then Lee Crooks set up Mike Ford for a try of his own. Hull KR did have the final word. Parker and Chris Harrison working the opening for Hull's second try, a final score of 36-18 to Castleford.
The relegation issue is long gone for both Salford and Sheffield, but they produced a feast of points at the Willows, Peter Williams failing to defuse the bomb and Anthony Farrell giving the Eagles an early lead. But when Williams went for his own chip ahead at the other end, Mike McLean tripped him and he was ordered off by referee Colin Steele. Craig Coleman produced Salford's first try. It was 6-4 at this point to the Eagles, but Coleman's ball out to Critchley and the England international over in the corner. And when substitute Ian Blease collected the first of his 3 tries, Salford increased their lead, 14-6. Next, a try out of nothing. Mark Lee looked to have lost his way, but then he found the gap, Andy Burgess in support, and he just got home in the corner. In the second half, Salford pressed on. Blease collected his second, Salford's fourth, but he wasn't too happy with Gary Jack. And when Mick Cook appeared to spear tackle Tony Howard, Sheffield, already reduced to 12 men, were down to 11. Cook shown the red card by referee Steele. Salford then with 2 men to spare, and Jason Critchley looks well back to his best. Strength and pace on show here for his second try. Wayne Reid, the other Salford substitute, got in on the scoring act next. The final pass from Jed Stasica, and Reid was unstoppable from this range. So Salford by now running riot. Young and Coleman combining to send in Martin Burkitt, Salford's 7th try. And then the Ian Blease hat-trick. It was the easiest of all 3, a walk-in with Sheffield in disarray. Their under-21 international Ian Hughes did manage a consolation try for the Eagles. Salford not too happy with that defence. But it was the Red Devils who completed the scoring, a sweeping attack, rounded off by Stasica. Salford 48, Sheffield 12.
Bradford Northern came back down to earth after their win over Wigan. Dwayne Mann opening the scoring for Warrington at Odsall, the only try in the first half. In the second, a Northern up and under was collected by Kelly Shelford, and he set winger Neil Kenyon on the long race to the try line. Two minutes later, Mann's chip and chase opened the way for Chris Rudd to score right under the posts. Northern scored their only try in the last minute of the match when Tony Anderson got in the corner, 21-8 to Wyre.
A thriller at Headingley where Leeds met Wakefield, Paul Dixon with the first Leeds try. And when Tate's surging run opened the Trinity defence up, it was Ellery Hanley again at standoff who capitalised. Leeds 12-0 ahead in as many minutes. Simon Irving added a penalty. It was 14-0. But this was a local derby, and Wakefield weren't going to take defeat lying down. Andy Mason exposing the holes in that Leeds defence. And they got it back to 14-12 when Australian scrum half Geoff Bagnall somehow found his way over the line. Irving made it 18-12 at half-time with a try in the corner, but in the second half, well, Wakefield scored first through Gary Price, and they followed it up with a sweeping attack. Wright, Conway and then Richard Goddard all involved before James Mosley found acres of room to score, 26-18 to Trinity. Jim Fallon, though, squeezed in here in the corner to reduce the gap to 4 points. And when Lowes, Hanley and Innes combined, it was Irving again who rescued a point for Leeds in the closing minute.
Tyra, and that's a good ball to Devereux, and Devereux for the first try. Out to the far side to Duncan Platt. Another former witness man, he's over! Duncan Platt with a try! Strength from Street. Gunning, turns the ball back inside. Rouet, they're over! David Rouet in the fullback. And this is Paul Hume, and a try!
Some tremendous action this weekend. The top of the First Division table, well, Wigan or St Helens for the championship. They're level on points now at the top. It's all down to Good Friday at Central Park. And there's now a 3-point gap between the top 8 and the rest, as we will confirm at the bottom. And Hull Kingston Rovers, I'm afraid, are being left behind. To the Second Division results: Carlisle 16, Huddersfield 29, Featherstone 60, Bramley 0, Oldham 20, London Crusaders 27, and Rochdale 14, Swinton 25. To the Second Division, Featherstone, if my maths are correct, need 2 points for the title in Division 2. On now to the Third Division results: Barrow 76, Blackpool 6, Dewsbury 39, Doncaster 16, Highfield 18, Chorley 8, Hunslet 11, Workington 34, Nottingham 7, Whitehaven 40. There's quite a battle going on for the final Third Division Championship. It could be any one of the teams on that caption who lift the crown at the end of the season. And at the bottom, well, I'm afraid now that Nottingham have got no chance of survival, but there's a real scrap going on between Highfield, Chorley, Blackpool. Barrow are now safe, I think. So matches on Sky this weekend. We have Widnes against Salford, live and exclusive for you on the Big League on Friday, 7 o'clock. On Sunday, we go back to the top of the table to see how St Helens do in the local derby at Wilderspool against Warrington. And a week on Friday, we have an international for you. Great Britain against France from Headingley, live and exclusive. And some news on that international has reached us today. It is that Gary Schofield, the Great Britain captain, is out of the match. He has been banned from the Headingley ground and suspended by Leeds for a fortnight for a breach of club discipline. And because he's in dispute with his club, Malcolm Reilly cannot choose him for the international side. Mike Stephenson, that's a big blow to Gary Schofield, who's after the record of appearances and tries, of course. But what about this Schofield situation? Is it time, do you think, that Schofield and Leeds parted amicably?
Oh, without a doubt. I think that there's been innuendos flying around for, I'd say, nearly 2 years now, ever since they took the captaincy off him. I don't think that Gary Schofield has been really settled at Leeds. There have been a few problems. It took them a while to get started. They said that it was a new players. I still think that there are a few problems there, and I think that for all concerned, let's just separate.
He is a Leeds lad, of course, isn't he? And it would probably break his heart, just as it did break his heart when he lost the captaincy, to have to say that enough is enough.
Well, yes, I think the situation, I think it'll come home to him very, very clearly now that because of the indiscretion, I don't know what it was or whether there was one, if the club deem it that they suspend him for 2 weeks, but the fact that he's not going to play for Great Britain, that's going to really hurt him.
The big question, of course, is where on earth can he go? Because as this programme is all about the future and all about money in some cases, there is no money around in the game at the moment.
Well, I think a lot of players, and I think a lot of players are starting to realise that a lot of clubs are in a lot of problems. And I think that the players, as well as a lot of clubs, are going to bite the bullet and take a pay cut for the good of the game. I know it won't be easy, but I'm afraid we're going to have to do it.
Just on a general point, as far as the matches over the weekend are concerned, some tremendous action we saw there, wasn't there?
Look, there's nothing wrong with the game at all. The action is fantastic. We've got some beautiful young kids coming through. They're playing exceptionally good play in the academy leagues. The future there is very, very good indeed. We've just got a few other areas to sort out.
That's right, and that is the way it looks just now. Coming up, though, the great debate as Rugby League looks to the future with fewer teams, as we examine the arguments for and against the restructuring of the game. We have all the leading personalities involved right here in the studio, and we shall be hearing from them next.
Well, I'm opposed against two division because it never worked before. We had this two division situation for 17 years. I want somebody to tell me why now, without going back to two division, what the difference will be. A long time ago, when we had this two divisions, a lot of people stopped attending rugby league matches because nobody was going watching the team lose. And we had 90% of these sides throughout the season finishing up having nothing to play for. Supporters were getting every week well saying, I'm not going to watch them because they're never going to win anything. We are now saying two division is going to be the be all and end all. And on top of that, to lose 3 clubs out of this game, I think is a disgrace, a total disgrace. This game is not for people to say, well, we'll get rid of them because they're getting beat 18-19. It's nothing to do with that. Rugby league is for people to watch, not for the so-called big boys just to say, well, we want to go national. We'll never go national where we've done with this one because we've made ourselves a laughingstock.
That's Alex Murphy's view on the restructuring and the reorganisation of rugby league. So let us now here in the Boots and All studio get right down to business. Maurice Lindsay, the Chief Executive, is with us. Maurice, can I just ask you one thing that has been asked of me many times on the terraces over the past week or two? The restructuring in the two division format of 16 was deemed to be wrong in January. Why has in 2 months it suddenly been deemed to be right and the right way forward?
Well, along with many other people, I too would like 3 divisions. I'd like 4 divisions. The honest truth is we don't have enough quality footballers or quality football teams to run 3 meaningful divisions. It's a wonderful idea academically and people can talk about it forever, but in real terms we don't have enough football teams to put out 3 attractive, competitive, meaningful 3 divisions. We just cannot do it. Now, as for the time of what is seen to be a change of mind, the board of directors have come in for a lot of stick for apparently putting this scheme forward urgently. That's so unfair. The board of directors actually put forward much earlier in the season a scheme whereby there would be 16 teams in the first division and 19 teams in the second division, and that would have left 3 teams going into another division at the end of next season. The council debated that for weeks and weeks and weeks, and we were going nowhere. And what happened, it was shelved, then 2 16s were shelved, and finally, as the season got to this stage, this recent stage, clubs like Wilkinson, clubs like York, clubs like Hull, just stood up and very passionately at the council meeting, and Geoff was there, said, we're not going to carry on. Wilkinson, a very progressive club, said, and put it in writing, that there was a realistic chance that they would not even be here next year if the divisional structure carried on as it was. Now, whether we here agree with that or not, that is a fact. So what do? Do we not listen to that? Do we not listen to York? Do we not listen to other clubs who were saying very loudly exactly the same thing? And I'm afraid the mood of the council was that there had to be an abrupt change.
And so change there will be. That is now obvious courtesy of the vote. Lindsay Hoyle, you're obviously under threat along with Blackpool and Highfield with Geoff Fletcher here. Shouldn't you now go quietly? The vote has been taken. It has been a valiant effort, everyone will say that, but surely now perhaps time to call it a halt.
Definitely not. We've still got games to play. Myself and Geoff are going to fight right to the end on the fixtures, but we believe we've won the moral argument anyhow. We've got the backing of spectators. In fact, a couple of John's supporters from Salford said, I can't even go and watch my own club this week. I've come to watch Highfield and Chorley. He said, and here you are, here's a cheque for £20, put that into your fighting fund. That's the passion that's coming from the supporters. We played Whitehaven. After I've been on the programme here, those Whitehaven fans came up to me, you're right, you're doing the best job. Superb, keep it going, all this is wrong, what's happening? Can I just mention, in our first season we ended up above Workington. Would that not have been the right time to reduce it to 16? Isn't it funny, when it's not them and fortunes change, and in this game fortunes do change and positions change, that the time has to be now when certain clubs are there. Because it's not affecting them, they will always vote for it. It's the old NIMBY situation. We can't get away from that, and that's the problem we face.
Well, Steve-O, you're a man who never ever ducks the issue. You've heard about the passion that is there on the terraces. What do you think? Do you think it's right now that we should change and 3 should go and we're back to 2 divisions?
I have always been a man to back up to say that we should always have clubs. We should always give them the opportunity. I don't like the 2 divisions. I think that if they wanted 16 in the first division and they said they wanted 16 in the second division, then give it to them and leave the 3 and join them in with the Emmelssteads and the Gateshead and etc. etc. At least that would have been a feeder league for them. It would have given them a chance. It would have given them hope. Also, the fans that wanted to go and watch it. I mean, it's a matter of interest whether you want to watch a side or go and watch one that's got 30,000 watching them or not. The thing is, give them hope. They're there to start with. We've got to have a feeder league, and what better way than to join in with, say, the amateur clubs that we've got there? Okay, make it semi-professional, but at least they've got a chance.
Geoff Fletcher, you've sat there, you've listened to all this, a feeder league. Would you be happy to go into a part-time situation in a feeder league?
Well, what I've got against it all is how quickly it's been done. That is the reason. I'm totally against this. Maurice was telling a little few Joeys then when he talked about Wilkinson. Wilkinson put a 3 division forward. The board was given orders, or whatever you want to call them, to go and have a look at it, get it together and fetch it back. That was never fetched back to council. The reason, a lot of clubs had been lobbied, spoke to, and then it was all ready. When that came to council, that was ready, that was set up to go. Maurice knows it was, and I know it was. They'd only spoke to clubs what was not in the danger area. And it's all against the fair play. There's only one person what matters in this game, and that's the spectators. We are a spectators' game. Why weren't the spectators asked what they want? Has anybody ever thought of speaking to the spectators? No, because people in ivory towers get on the little high horses and think they can rule people. Well, this is not on. This is not fair. It's not fair on anybody. Let's all get together. We're a family. Rugby league has always been a family. But I'm afraid this isn't. To put it with a month to go to the end of the league is just diabolical.
Impassioned plea there from Geoff. John, I think we ought to get you in on the discussion right away and then just throw it open to the 5 of you to chat about it. You're safe, of course. You're in a good position in the first division. It's easy for you to take the vote, isn't it, and condemn 3 clubs to oblivion.
Yeah, possibly it is, Eddie, but we've been in the second division many, many times, and we've fought very difficult times at Salford. But it was rushed in. I've got to agree there. It was rushed in. The timing probably wasn't the right timing. What we've got at Rugby League now, we have a board of directors, but the one thing we won't let them do is direct. And I'm convinced in any business, in any walk of life, 35 people around a table will never ever make the right decision. And the board of directors, they set a paper out that could have worked perfectly, but we changed it so many times we won't let it go through. And if Rugby League is going to go forward, we've got to give the directors, we've got to let them run the game. You know, it won't work in this climate. It did very, very bad times. And people talk about money. I'll tell you, it's very, very important, and it's very important in Rugby League.
But are they just frightened that perhaps the directors will sort of take control completely? I mean, do they just want to feel part of it?
Possibly they do, Mike. I'm sorry, I'm not a council member. You know, I find it very difficult to make the council meetings. But when I have attended, you know, I've thought I could certainly do something better on a Wednesday afternoon. You can't possibly work with 35 people. It just doesn't work. You'll never get the right decision.
The opening shots in the great debate about the future of Rugby League. Time to just temporarily bring a halt to the arguments. We'll be back with more for you in a few moments' time. Stay with us on Boots and All. The great debate continues after these.
Well, we've had to accept what has been put to us by the Board of Directors, that there are clubs who are not expanding the game, but are in fact an anchor on the game's progress. And if these clubs have to go to the wall, well, one very reluctantly has to accept it. I must say, in support of the Board of Directors, that all the contumely that has been poured upon them since this decision is totally ill-founded. It's a question, it's rather like the Irishman asked the way to Dublin and said, well, I wouldn't start from here. And we wish we weren't starting from here, but we've got to deal with things as they were. And when we go to a council meeting, followed by a special meeting of clubs, and are told that there are clubs, some substantial clubs, who are saying that the status quo cannot exist next season, and if it does, they will go to the wall, then one has to do something. And we were faced with a situation where we had to do something, and we had to do something now.
Let's continue the debate here in the studio. Maurice Lindsay, it's already been hinted tonight that perhaps the reason why the game is floundering at the moment is because the Rugby League Council is too unwieldy. Isn't it about time to contract that and get it under the umbrella of one smaller organisation?
I think John made a very good point. We all know from our own families that if you're arguing about the colour of wallpaper or carpets, you can't agree if there's more than one. So imagine what it's like having a debate with 35 people plus 6 directors. It's very difficult indeed. It almost becomes a debating society, and I think it is about time we looked at ourselves. I have in fact put a paper together on the future government of the game, but it's not quite the right time to bring it out because of the furore that's going on at the moment, and the fact that 4 of us are here tonight talking about the future of the game. But very shortly I will be bringing forward a paper which I'll ask people to consider very seriously and very carefully because it affects their own position, and I will be asking council to reform itself. I think some council chairmen, for instance, would come, people like John Wilkinson who had a powerful business, people like John would come and lend their talents if they didn't have to come once every month and sometimes more often to a very steamy debate. I think you'd rather come less frequently and come and debate a specific subject relating to the future of the game, and I'm sure with people and many more people like John, I'm sure we could make the progress that you want us to make.
But Maurice, will these clubs who have a representative on the council, will they cut their own throat?
They probably won't, Mike. I once heard someone say that the board themselves 2 years ago at a council meeting at Headingley suggested that we meet every 2 months.
But how can we convince these people? I mean, you've just explained that is the way, and it's a business acumen.
You try to convince people with logic and argument, but sometimes people don't listen. I was about to tell you that one of the council members said, no, we must come every month, we enjoy it.
Well, Maurice, let's just hold on a minute, come on, let's be a little bit more serious. We're getting rid of 3 clubs here. Is that not the real reason? One way to get your system in is to reduce the number of votes within that council.
Nothing to do with
Now,
it
is that not one? That's one question that's been thrown up all the time. Keep reducing the number of votes. Keep reducing those votes, and then they'll get their own way.
Well,
we must remember that clubs are there to be represented. Whether you think it's the right way or the wrong way, you've got to come up with a system that still allows clubs to have that representation and put their views forward. And we're not hearing that. We're hearing, well, we've got John here who's sat at my side and that's why he's here with me tonight. We're not hearing about the other clubs in the lower divisions. Come on, you represent those as well. Okay. Let's hear some positive thoughts on that.
Let's talk about your club for a start. Let's talk about all the lower clubs. You've introduced the subject. The argument that's come forward from the 28 clubs, Lindsay, is that the lower clubs are not successful, and that includes your own, unfortunately.
What success, Maurice?
Can I answer the question, please, Lindsay? Don't answer it for me. There are no personal vendettas here. Nobody's trying to embarrass you or Geoff or anybody else, but they are concerned about their clubs. And unfortunately, when they play the clubs at the bottom, and we are talking about people like Workington, no matter what Geoffrey says, I've got a letter that will prove exactly what the chairman of Workington is saying. They say that they are playing in front of poor crowds, that you're not making progress, that it is a financial drain on the league, and I know you argue that it's not. I'm afraid the figures will beat you there. Can I give you some figures, for instance?
Certainly.
Maurice,
can I just give this to Lindsay?
You can by all means, but the fact of the matter is, and we might just get buried in a bit of facts and figures here, do you honestly think that a change that you are proposing or that has been proposed will mean that these clubs playing in the second division will earn more money next year?
Possibly not, but there's an argument from the first division as well, isn't there? I mean, you know that I've always wanted 14 teams in the first division. I've argued it consistently. I'm not going to be hypocritical now. But the majority of clubs who want to play in the first division want 16. They argue that mathematically it's better for them. And we're in a club, and if the majority of clubs want 16 in the first division, then no matter what myself or Malcolm Reed or anyone else says, that's what democratically we must have.
But Maurice, that's just like me having a shop and I open 5 days. So I think, okay, well, I'll open 7. I'll automatically get more business. But it doesn't necessarily mean that I will.
It's an argument that could well be right, but Roy Wardby, who's probably got one of the sharpest financial brains in the country, has produced a paper that says it will produce anywhere from 1 million to 1.72 million extra throughout the game. More money in the levy, which the second division clubs don't pay, because obviously more fixtures mean more levy going into the pot.
So we're really talking about survival then?
Let's be honest, you are talking about survival. You're talking about survival people. Let's forget the lower clubs. You're talking about survival people.
Well, I'd
like
rather
Salford.
not, but I mean, because I think that they should still be in there, but...
Well, don't the other clubs, as well as Geoff's club and as well as Lindsay's clubs, just because they're not here tonight, don't those clubs have a right to a view? And if they're nervous, and you've got the chairman of one of the clubs here, ask him, if those clubs are nervous about their financial future, and they're anxious to preserve their financial future, and they think that by having another 4 league fixtures, they will benefit, then we have to listen.
That's great, but at the expense of losing 3 clubs.
Let's ask you, John Wilkinson, are you nervous, or is it purely and simply on the part of the big boys in the First Division, a word that has been bandied around for the past fortnight, greed? Is it greedy of the First Division?
No, I don't think it is. Everybody wants to play in the big league. Let's get that absolutely straight and on the table. I mean, you lads, you don't go to many second division games or third division games. That's what the game's all about. That's what the media wants, that's what the supporters want, and that's what everybody wants with rugby league. It's not greed at all. You know, it costs a lot today to run a rugby league club. You know, I mean, I've been now chairman 11 years, and let's get it straight. We've got a nice club at Salford. We've never sold a pint of beer in my time as chairman. We've had to work very hard on the commercial side of our business, and also my own finances that I put into the club. And we've worked very, very hard indeed. But we've done it right, because we run 3 sides. We run a very good Alliance side of young players, and I'm hoping this Saturday we'll win that Alliance second division title. We've got a very good academy side. We've done very good in the schools with 2,000 junior devil members. That's where clubs probably should make progress to probably get people coming through the turnstiles.
So John
2,000, Eddie, 2,000 who are kids born today. It's a junior devil till it's 16, and they don't pay anything to watch a league game at Salford.
John's saying he's done it right. Geoff, do you think you've done it wrong?
Well, no, not really. The way John's done it, he's done it well. They picked John up because he's got the thing straight. He's got everything straight, like I've had to do. But John will tell you, when he first started, he wasn't at the top. He was at the bottom, like I've done. I've cleared the club's debts. I've got everything right. I've got my homework right. I was told by the Minimum Standards Committee, a gentleman on that said, your ground does not come up to the standards. Find a ground. I found one, I went to the Chief Executive, I explained the situation. Where do I put my money? In the new stadium or the team? Now, it was either one or the other. I chose the stadium. I kept Rugby League informed. I've got it all set up, and then this comes in and saying your team's doing bad. Yes, the team is doing bad, because the money what should have been spent on the team was spent on a stadium to get my business right. You're told to draw your assets in. I've drawn them in.
Have you got security of tenure on that ground, Geoff?
I would have had. I would have had. I've got 99 years where I am now, but it does not meet the minimum standards. But the other ground did. 1,000-seater stadium. Excellent it was. Everything was right. Maurice knew about it. I was due to sign, and then this just bobs on in 4 weeks. I'm not the only person. A lot of these bank managers are going to start looking at this.
You're talking about moving out of the area that you're in, aren't you, Geoff?
Well, you know what I'm talking about, Maurice, because I've liaised with you.
I support you in it, because you know I've been critical, and I'm critical of Lindsay as well. I'm critical of where you two play, and so are a lot of other people. Geoff plays within the shadow of an already existing First Division club, St Helens.
4.5 miles.
But I don't think that's development, 4.5 miles, with due respect, Geoff. Lindsay plays at the moment something like 10 or 15 minutes away
But
from Central Park, Wigan.
I've done as you asked.
And you're moving out of that, or you would move out of that into another area.
Well, you know
Prescott,
that.
closer to Python.
Liverpool. And you want them in the cities. You want to expand. Right. We have to put them into the schools. If you knock us out, that expansion stops. That expansion stops going into Liverpool. No one else is going to go.
Does that mean, though, Maurice, that if that is the case, then that the clubs are too close, then they'd have to formulate a marriage so that Batley and Dewsbury and Hunslet and Bramley get them together, and even the 2 Hull clubs?
Entirely agree with you. It amazes me that Batley and Dewsbury, who are at the moment playing on the same ground, can walk to each other's spectators' houses, don't merge. It's just local rivalry, isn't it? It's local tradition.
They don't speak.
They don't speak to each other, you know, because you play in that division. I think it's a nonsense, and I've talked to Stephen Ball, the chairman of Batley, about it, and he says that I think he said he would like a merger, but it's not on. And there are plenty of other teams who won't merge. Salford and Swinton.
So are we going to get over this tradition, this sort of, we can't do
very
this and we can't
difficult,
do that?
mate. We are northerners. We seem to have a northern stubbornness. We seem to have a northern insularity, and it's holding us back. A lot of things that these lads are going to say tonight is unarguably true. Right? Of course we shouldn't be knocking teams out. It's nonsense to knock a single team out. But the way we've let teams develop is wrong.
Boris, we're going to have to leave it there for a minute. We shall come back to more discussion from our studio panel. And also we have a replica jersey to give away in the Beat Steve-O competition held over for a couple of weeks. I wonder if it's a Highfield or a Chorley jersey. So there's plenty more to come on Boots and All. We'll be back in a couple of minutes. Now then, we pause for a moment or two in the debate on Rugby League's future, because now it's time to beat Steve-O. We had a bit of a break last week, so remember it was the Challenge Cup semi-final and the remaining fixtures in the Championship to concentrate on. I'm afraid the lad done bad. 3 out of 6 correct, his worst effort, well, I was going to say for some time, I think all season. This week's winner then didn't have much to beat. And to be fair, let's give his name, Mr. MP Russell from South Humberside, a replica jersey of your choice. Mr. Russell, well done. This week's predictions, fixtures first, there they are, the second semi-final, the rest of the championship matches, and as ever, Steve-O's winners are picked out in gold. Well, you've gone for the big gamble in the semi-final, I see.
Well, of course, yes. I think there'll be 6 coaches just fainted now. The ones that I've tipped.
Of course. The address for your entries as ever, Beat Steve-O, Sky Sports, P.O. Box 6, Grant Way, Isleworth, Middlesex, TW7 5QQ.
If we look at the decisions that were made at Chapeltown Road, I think, first of all, it's been done in entirely the wrong way. I'm convinced it won't stand up in court anyway to expel clubs halfway through a season. But the end result they're aiming for is not desirable in my book either. A 16-team First Division just works against everything that people have been trying to do in this game for years, just improving the standard of the peak of the pyramid, the best rugby league that we have on offer. We're going to dilute that, we're going to make it less attractive to spectators, to sponsors. We put an increased burden on players who, of course, like coaches and spectators, aren't consulted about any of this. I just think it's wrong from beginning to end. I want there to be a game to write about until I retire. I want there to be a game for my little boy to play and his son after him. And I want it to be a vibrant, expanding game, not one that's in retreat. And I'm afraid that's what this decision does to it.
Let's now touch on the legal arguments. Lindsay Hoyle, I know that you have been taking solicitors' and barristers' advice. Where are we with this now? Surely we're not going to have a court case pending, are we, or are we?
Well, we may do. Obviously, we've taken the legal advice. It's favourable at this moment. I'll definitely know that on Wednesday when I get the barrister's advice, and then that decision will be taken from there. The fighting firm's going well to back up our legal action if needed, so we're really going to go all the way if we have to. I believe that there is room for change within rugby league, and that change should come quickly before we get into this argument. But if there is no change, I'm afraid that's how far it's going to go. We're going to take it all the way.
Courts of law getting involved. Maurice, the game is being dragged through the mud, isn't it? We're washing the dirty linen in public here. Is there any chance of a U-turn?
I wouldn't have thought so, quite honestly, and it obviously saddened me and many other people if it gets to court. But I understand the position that Lindsay takes. If I were chairman of Chorley or any other club in the area, I'd take the same view. But 28 clubs voted for this motion, and therefore 28 clubs will be fighting the legal case. It's a very sorry situation, and it's not giving me any pleasure. It's not giving anybody any pleasure, really, even the 28 clubs that voted for it. But the 28 people that voted for it are not stupid, they're not foolish, they weren't drunk. They've spent considerable time searching their consciences, and they've decided, and it's not music to the ears of these people here, they've decided that the clubs at the bottom, with their paltry attendances, no sign of any real progress, people that don't have a stadium of their own, don't necessarily know where they'll be playing next year, some of them. The honest truth is that they've had enough.
Because the analogy, of course, in Australia was Western Suburbs, and that really did go on for 3 years. And it was an embarrassment for the rugby league. Surely we can avoid this if we've got to go through drag it through for 3 years. But I must say, on one situation in regards to that, Lindsay, is the fact that the only reason why the New South Wales Rugby League allowed Western Suburbs to come back in, if they moved. Now, would you be prepared to move to a new area?
We're always willing to talk, we're always willing to look at new ideas, but I believe the area around Chorley is right. Before we went to Chorley there was no rugby league. John talks about junior devils. This is the kind of thing that we produce. Chorley Borough, the training scheme, we're in the schools. We've got our own video on development of the game, and that's what it's about. We've just won the North West Counties. We've won every match. You know, that's the junior kids that we're bringing through. Without us being there, there would have been no development within rugby league. It's no use us pretending that Wigan's 8 miles down the road. It didn't happen. Over the years, almost 100 years of Wigan being down the road, there has never been rugby league in Chorley. It took Chorley Borough to get that rugby league development, and got it, and certainly got it going now. And we've proved what you can do.
And I'm not being hypercritical, I just would like to know, Lindsay, your club was born basically because Blackpool moved to Wigan, and then as Springfield Borough they moved to Chorley, and then they wanted to move to Trafford, and you wanted to take over where they left off. Why did they want to leave Chorley in the first place? Because the argument that they put through Rugby League headquarters when they wanted to move to Trafford was that they couldn't get enough support in Chorley, and that the ground available to them in Chorley just wasn't right. It was too expensive and they'd nowhere really to play. So what's the history there?
That's not quite true, in my opinion, Maurice, because obviously I wasn't prior to the Springfield
You weren't
days.
part of that
No,
group.
I wasn't. I can only tell you from where I picked up that how I got involved in rugby league. They came to me and said, look, we're leaving Wigan, we want to come to Chorley. Only part of that board had the heart to come to Chorley. I believe it was a casting vote that brought them to Chorley. They asked me to get involved. I was on the local authority. That I did do. We got the local authority involved. We got everything set up fine. And unfortunately, there was always that contingency of directors who wanted to take it south to where they live. And there's no argument in that. Yes, they did. And we carried on. And we've started to build on what they left.
Let's not get too deeply involved in local arguments. The County Cup, for instance, is going, or both County Cups are going. The game is chucking away 2 sponsors, it would appear, with the Charity Shield and the sponsors of the Lancashire Cup. Again,
well, you're right, and there's a contradiction there, because the Charity Shield should never have gone, and it was never the board's wish that it went. But that had to go because the council at one stage insisted that the County Cups remain. And with the County Cups, and I did the fixtures this year for next year with the County Cup dates.
Set them out.
I've set the dates out.
Oh, that's
and
right.
I set the 2 rounds of the County Cups to be the 2 weekends before the season started proper, which meant that there was no room for the Charity Shield. So, as a sacrifice for the County Cups, we lost the Charity Shield. And then the County Cups went, but it's too late to go back to the sponsors and pull back the Charity Shield, who would be mightily offended if we went back to them anyway. So, I agree with the criticism that some of the people are putting forward to us. We're not running our affairs properly, and we deserve to be criticised in some areas.
Will we bring in a financial criteria for all these clubs? Because I perhaps would have thought it would have been the best way forward to do that first. Let's get stability. Geoff talks about the stability at his club. We're in a situation now where we've got a team going to Wembley, and they're appealing to save the club. It certainly doesn't look good for us, does it?
We've got 1 minute. We have 1 minute left, gentlemen.
Entirely agree with you. We need financial regulation in our game. When Chorley came in, with all due respect to Chorley, remember that they said they had £80,000 to spend on building a new team. That won't do, I'm afraid, in the future. I agree with you on for instance, you're talking about witness. We have to have a salary cap. We have to have control. We've gone mad in the game, and we're just
can you bring it in, or will 32 clubs say no? 35 clubs, sorry, say no. We don't want
Why
that.
don't you let Swinton go, Maurice? Come on, let's be honest. Swinton, John's club voted against Swinton being allowed back in rugby league. They took that vote because they thought that's 1 club less. Well, if that was the case, they was financially unstable. They went into receivership. That was the end. But they were brought back into rugby league, and now it's at the expense of clubs like ours. That's wrong.
That's John to answer that question. I didn't vote that way, did I?
Yeah, I think that we took a stance on that because we got our fingers burned when Halifax went into receivership, and we said any club that goes out again owing clubs money, that we would vote that they don't come back in the league.
There we go.
So is it right?
I know we could talk about this for hours and hours. You will be talking about it at home for hours, and you'll be able to talk about it, I'm sure, in weeks to come. We'll get your letters next week. Lindsay, that's all we've got time for. Gentlemen, thank you for being with us. Boots and all next week, 10 o'clock. Goodbye.